sometimes for better and sometimes for worse. So I was wrestling about what to teach this open book. And there's a very difficult text here. It's called the Sotah, and it's the ordeal of the suspected adulteress. I'm like, oh, should I get into this? It's difficult, right? What should I do with this? And I didn't want to be one of those rabbis who pretend that Torah is all sweet and good. So I said, okay, let's wrestle with this. Let's see what comes of it. So first, warning that this is, it's about a woman who's humiliated, and the text is kind of violent in certain ways. So just that warning. And it's interesting what the tradition does with it. And I was going to call this, I called this bitter text, the ordeal of the Sotah, the suspected adulteress. I was going to call it, Can Bitter Texts Become Sweet? And then my chavruta said, maybe you're sort of like leading the witness in that direction when we're not necessarily going in that direction, right? I don't know if the bitter text can become, I actually don't know. So I'm asking a question of, what do we do? How do we wrestle with difficult texts in the Torah? This is sort of an open-ended question. And we're going to look at all kinds of sources and resources by which to consider that question. Okay, I hope that's clear. And with that, welcome out. With that, we will dive in. Share my screen. No, that didn't help. Try it again. Let's see if it comes up. So I'm going to try one more time. If it doesn't work, Gil, I might ask you to do this. It worked. 3 is a charm. Okay. So before we get into the specific text, and Gil, did you share the link for the source sheet?
I did. I'm going to share a PDF, and I'm going to share the link one more time.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Okay, so before we look at the actual text on the Sotah, there's a preamble. And the first preamble is part of the Haftarah reading, the prophetic reading that we did on Shavuot on the second day. So the Haftarah reading for the second day, hi, do you have a text? Can we pass one back? Is there an extra one somewhere?
It's okay.
It's okay? Okay. All right. Yeah, there might be extra ones in the printing machine if you want to take a look. You should. Okay, great. So on the second day of Shavuot, there might be one in the machine. If there's not, don't worry about it. People can share. There's the really wild, called Ma'aseh Merkava, the vision Ezekiel has. Chariot and animals and eyes and multiple legs, and I've never known how to make sense of it, and I still don't. The only way I can make sense of it is to imagine a medicinal vision, the likes of which I have not had. And though this is the first time I really paid attention to the second chapter, where there's an image. And this image also exists in other prophetic texts, where Ezekiel, who lived during the destruction of the Second Temple, is instructed to eat a text, to actually eat a text. So let's see what happens when he eats the text. Okay, so it says, Va'ata, ben Adam, Shema et asher ani medaber elecha, al tehi meri kevet hameri, and you, mortal or human being, heed what I say to you. Listen, do not be rebellious like that rebellious breed. And this word merry, which means rebellious, is also consonant or sounds like bitter. We'll see how this how the meaning sort of heads towards bitterness. Open your mouth and eat what I am giving you. Ve'er'eh, v'hinei yad shlucha elai, v'hinei vo megillat sefer. And I looked, as I looked, Elliot, would you mind closing the door? Thank you so much. As I looked, there was a hand stretched out to me holding a written scroll. ויפרוש אותה לפניי, והיא כתובה, פנים ואחור, וכתוב עליה, פנים והגה והיא. And it says here God, but it says, and he unrolled it before me, and it was inscribed on both the front and the back. And if you recall, the original tablets were inscribed front and back. And on it were written lamentations, kinim, the hege, dirges, vahi, and woes. Right? So it's basically a scroll of grief. Scroll of grief. Vayomer Elai. And presumably God said to him, or it says literally, and he said to me, Ben Adam, son of human, et asher timsa echol. Told him Megillah Hazot, Lech daber el Beit Yisrael. Eat what is offered you. Human being, eat what is offered you. Eat this scroll and go speak to the house of Israel. V'aftach pi, and I opened my mouth. V'ya'achileni et Megillah Hazot. And I was made to eat, or I was given this scroll to eat. Right? I think it's a hippiel. I was made to eat, or I was fed this Megillah, this scroll. Vayomer Elai ben Adam bitnecha te'achel ume'echa temale et Megillah hazot asher ani noten elecha. Human being, feed your stomach and fill your belly with the scroll that I give you. Va'ochla, and I ate it. I ate it and it tasted sweet. So somehow this scroll of lamentation and woe and dirge, right? The scroll of grief became as sweet as. And so my question is, if we chew it over, can it become sweet or does it remain bitter? Right? And again, I don't know. I don't know the answer. I don't know if texts like this that we're about to read ever become sweet. Okay. Over there. People, oh, more copies. Wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you, Eden. Okay, so we're going to do a lot more text before I open things up, because there's a lot of preamble before we get to the what?
To the amble.
To the amble. Preamble before we get to the amble. So we're still preambling. The walk before the walk, exactly. And then
It's always the walk before the walk.
and then the walk will actually be the walk of shame.
True, the walk back. The walk home.
Okay. So in terms of making the bittersweet, right, there are other beautiful images of that. The Torah, and my Chavruta, Rabbi Sharon Konanisov, reminded me this morning of this beautiful text, which I put on the source sheet. And it says, and this is right after the Israelites passed through the Sea of Reeds. And remember how they did not want to do that, but they did that, and they sang a song. And the first thing that happens in the wilderness, the very first thing, is they come to the bitter place. They came to Mara, but they could not drink the water of Mara, because it was bitter. But also listen to that alliteration, which will be all over the text of the Sota as well. Mayim mimara kimarim hem alken kara shema Mara. That's why it was named Mara. And remember also that the text directly before this one was about Miriam dancing with the women. And that word, that name Miriam, looks exactly like Marim, but it's vocalized differently.
Mm.
Vayilonu ha'am al Moshe lemor manashteh, and the people grumbled against Moshe or on Moshe, saying, "What are we going to drink?" Vayitzak el Adonai, and Moshe yelled at God, basically, or screamed to God. V'yorehu Adonai eitz vayashlech el hamayim, and God showed Moshe a tree or a piece of wood, and Moshe threw it into the water, into Ku Hamayim, and the water was sweetened. Sham Sam Lo Chok Mishpat V'Sham Nisahu. And there God made for them a fixed rule, and there they were put to the test. And remember that, this is as soon as the Israelites get enter the wilderness. So Sinai, this is chapter 15, Sinai doesn't happen until chapter 20. So there's no formal law coming down. And this is all education by experience and basically through food, right? First water and then manna, right? It's like how do you teach an infant? We teach an infant through the rhythms of feeding and crying and breastfeeding and sleeping, right? It's like all those pre-verbal ways of teaching. Vayomer im shamo tishma'al kol Adonai Elohecha v'yashar be'einav ta'aseh v'hazanta b'mitzvotav v'shamanta kol chukav kol. If you do all that, right? If you will heed God Adonai, diligently doing what is upright in God's sight, giving ear to God's commandments, and keeping all God's laws, then kol hamachala asher samti b'Mitzrayim, all that illness I put on Mitzrayim, that Egypt illness, right? That illness or that suffering of being in the narrow place, lo asim alecha, I will not put on you. Why? Ki ani, for I am God, your healer. Okay. So now, more preamble to the amble. This is now we're landing in our parsha, and we're looking at this concept called ma'al. The ma'al basically means misappropriating sacred objects or stealing, even misusing or stealing sacred objects. We'll get into that in a minute. But let's look at these opening verses before the ma'al of adultery. So also the sotah is described as having committed. There's a ma'al word employed there as well. So let's see what this ma'al word is doing here and then doing there. So Numbers 5, verses 5 through 9. Let's see if Asher Chaim is here so I don't have to read constantly.
Thank you. I've been having technical difficulties. I think I've got it figured out. Vaydaber
Right in
Adonai,
time, Asher Chaim, right in time. Thank you.
Vaydaber Adonai el Moshe lemor, Yud Hei Vav Hei spoke to Moshe, saying, Daber el bnei Israel, speak to the children of Israel, Ish o Isha, a man or a woman, Ki ya'asu mikol hakot ha'adam, lim'ol ma'al b'Adonai, ve'ashma ha'nefesh hahi. If they commit any kind of sin to misappropriate from Yud Hey Vav Hey, that soul will have sinned.
Okay, wait. Misappropriate from or in even God.
Me'al?
No, ba.
Ba. I'm sorry. Sometimes it's instrumental, using or through Yud Hey Vav Hey.
Okay, whatever it is, it's interesting.
Through
Like
me,
what?
yeah. V'hitvaddu et hakatam asher asu, v'heshiv et ashamo berosho, v'hamishito Yosef alav, v'natan la'asher asham lo. They shall confess their sin, which they did, and return the asham, which is literally the sin. It's birosho itself, or its head, and a fifth portion they shall add on top of it, and give it to the person against whom they had wronged. Ve'im ein la'ish goel lahashiv ha'asham elav ha'asham hamushav ladonai lakohen. And if the person against whom they had committed the crime did not have a redeemer to return the amount to, then that which is being returned shall go to Yud-Heh Vav-Heh for the Kohen. Milvad el ha-kippurim asher yichaper bo alav. And this is apart from the ram of atonement, which shall be used for atoning on his behalf. V'chol truma l'chol kadshei b'nei Yisrael asher yakrivu lakohen lo yihyeh. And all gifts raised up concerning all of the sacred portions of the Israelites that they bring forward to the Kohen, for the Kohen it will be. Glad you gave me something easy.
So let's look, before we get to this next text, let's look a little bit at what ma'al is. So this Hebrew term, mem ayin lamed, words built and any words built upon this root, appear 44 times in the Tanakh, and in general connotes a misuse or abuse of that which is sacred or holy, including, and people can go through this list by themselves, and it's variously translated as trespass, breaking faith, violate, treachery, error, perfidy. So now, just let's consider what this means when we transfer this term to adultery, and we'll see how it's used in the text of the Sotah. But one more text on Ma'al before we get there. So there's an idea that if we partake of anything on this earth, if we taste anything on this earth without a bracha, and it doesn't say this directly here, but it says in other rabbinic texts, I think the Gemara, which comments on this, it is as if you are stealing from God, right? You are committing ma'al, right? So lo yitom adam klum ad shivarech, shivarech. So a person should not taste anything until they bless, as it says in Psalms, lahashem haaretz, to God is the land, lo'ah, and its fullness. It doesn't belong to us. It belongs to God. So if we're not acknowledging the source of the gift, it's as if we're stealing, right? Okay. So the person who takes pleasure in this world without a blessing is as if they're committing ma'al. Shiatiru lo kol hamitzvot lo yishtamesh adam b'chanav yadav v'raglav ela l'chvod konehu shenemar kol pa'al Hashem lema'anhu. A person who receives pleasure from this world without a bracha makes inappropriate use of sacred property until all the mitzvot that must be done over this object will permit it to him. A person should use his face, his hands, and his feet only for the honor of his creator, as it is said, the creation of Hashem is for God's sake. So there's this sense that, as it says, the entire world belongs to God, and we partake only by acknowledging the source, right, of what we partake in. Okay. So now we're ready, almost ready, to go into the ritual of the Sotah. I just want to say in other places, I'm not going to read it, in the Leviticus and Deuteronomy, it's clear that adultery results, and adultery as defined by a man sleeping with a married woman, not a man sleeping with an unmarried woman. A man sleeping with a woman who is designated to somebody else. That results, if there's a witness, that results in death. Okay, and it doesn't matter where the man himself is married or not. Okay, that results in death. Okay, so now we're ready for the amble. So All right, I'll read this and I'll probably call it Ashur time again. So here's the intro. Jay, you want to say something?
Well, just I want to say something about ambling in the preambles, or do you want to wait with that?
Hit it.
Okay, so in the first preamble, it and the whole issue of Mary and going from bitter to sweet, it also what hits me is that it's all an injunction about being rebellious. And when you in that world, probably an adulteress is probably the height of rebellion. So it's a caution against rebellion, and so that kind of raises the seriousness of all this through that passage in Ezekiel, I think.
Yes. And in other places than in Ezekiel likens the adulterous woman to the Israelites who rebel against God.
Right. So that raises the stakes.
Yes. Yes. And we'll see it's not just a sin, it's not simply a sin against her husband, but what she does seems to be all about some kind of infraction against God's son.
Well, and it's no accident that our traditional view of God is male.
No, it's no. Yes, to say the least. No accident. Absolutely. Okay, so here we go. Daber el bnei Israel v'amata alehem ish ki tishte ishto u'ma'ala vo ma'al. There's one of the light words. How do I say that? Light word? Light vort?
Yeah.
Light vort.
Yeah.
Thank you. Speaks to his wife people and say to them, if any man's wife has gone astray and broken faith with him. But again, that very technical word ma'al is used, which I can carries with it misuse of sacred property. And I can only come to the conclusion, I might be wrong, that she is a sacred property that has been misused. So let's go on. V'shachav ish ota. So a man slept with her. Shechvat zera, a sleeping that involves seed. Ne'elam, and this is crucial. Me'enei isha v'nistara hi nitma'a. Nitma'a. V'ad ein ba, v'ed ein ba, v'hi lo nitpasa. So in that a man has had carnal relations with her, unbeknown to her husband, and she keeps secret. Vinisarahi, the fact that she's defiled herself, that she's become impure. Without being forced, there's no race here, and there is no witness against her. So remember that this is a case where there are no witnesses. And the next piece is also crucial. So the other light vort is jealousy, ruach kin'ah. Avar alav ruach kin'ah. So a jealous rage comes over him, a spirit of rage comes over him. The kinei et ishto, and he is jealous of his wife or of the other guy. Yeah. The he nitma'ah, and she has become impure, right? So there are two cases. He is in a jealous rage or a jealous fit, and she has actually defiled herself, or ruach avar alav ruach kan'ah, or a spirit of jealousy comes over him. The kinei it ishto, and he's jealous about his wife. The hilel nitma'ah, and she did not defile herself. So there are two possibilities here. In either case, he's in a jealous rage or jealous fit, but either she did it or she didn't do it. There's no witness, so we don't know. So who's the only witness possible?
The woman.
God.
Well, God.
Well, you're right, the woman and God.
What raises his suspicion?
What raises his suspicion? We don't know.
She has a sweet smile of satisfaction.
Oh. I remember people to raise your hands so that people on Zoom know what's going on here. But
It could
You
be
know-
it could be very beautiful, and men look at her often, and the guy gets jealous. It happens very often.
okay,
Be an insecure guy.
he could be an insecure guy. So anyone who's been jealous knows there could be a reason. There could not be a reason. There could be a real reason. There could be not a real reason. Right? So we don't know. We don't know what sparks the jealousy. And the Torah doesn't seem to be interested in what sparks the jealousy.
But in Buddhism, jealousy is
In
Buddhism, from a Jew Buddhist, strict Jew Buddhist perspective, jealousy is a put.
okay.
It's a what?
What?
What is what? Jealousy is a
Poison.
A poison.
Yeah, it doesn't feel good to be jealous, for sure.
Well, not only doesn't it feel good, but it's defiling in its own right.
It's a violent.
Okay,
Okay.
very sick.
It can make you very sick. So you'll see the text takes very seriously his jealousy. Okay, so let me just turn to the Zoom room for a second to see if there are any quick comments. Just to even things out. In case anyone in the Zoom room is jealous. No, okay, good. So we're gonna go on. It's always treacherous to stop sharing my screen because I never know if I'll get it back again, but it seems like I did. Okay, so Asher Chaim, I'm gonna ask you to read it, but I want you to pay close attention for when things sound alliterative and incantatory, almost incantatory, like it's an incantation. And when you get tired, I'll pick it up. Okay, it's a lot.
Ask your question.
You can ask the question. Norm,
What's an incantation?
what's an incantation?
Yeah,
What's an
it's a-
incantation?
It's a chant, but what's the property that is designated?
So why would I say incantatory?
It's a ritual speech. You
So-
compare chant and cant.
Oof.
So it's like saying a spell, basically.
So it's
Okay, wait, hold on. Did everyone on Zoom hear Tomas? I want to bring Tomas with me all the time.
Me too. Okay.
Would you? I'm gonna call it. Next time I go out on the road and made a speech recently. We were much better. Tomas, say it one more time loud.
So-
Okay.
An incantation is a ritual speech act, and you can hear chant, incant,
Canter.
and canter, nice, enchantment, like so any act of speech that is ritualized or
but it's
repeated.
designed to move it, to put you in a magic or some kind of mesmer or something like that. Is that
To
is that
affect something magical.
is that the meaning of
Correct.
incantation?
Correct.
I mean,
Affect something
you could say
magical.
magic, or you could say
Brainwash.
transcendent,
Transcendent.
or you could say hypnotized. There's lots of altered states.
Okay, so the reason I say it sounds like an incantation is the words are alliterative and repetitive, and it feels like it puts you in a different mode of consciousness. It's a very good question. I'm glad you raised that. Not letting me get away with just fast use of language. Okay.
So
Related nice, related to music. Canticle.
Mhm.
Beautiful. Wow, what a group. Okay.
perhaps where it shifts from a voice that sounds purely narrative to one that sounds more like a ritual formula.
Yes. So you'll point out when that happens.
Can I just say one thing else?
I didn't realize that was
Maybe-
the- Wait, hold on one second. Norm has one more
But does the ritual formula detract from its power because it's cliched at all? Or
because it's cliche.
well, I don't know.
I don't think it's cliche at all.
No, but the idea of something.
Easy does it.
No, stop. But the idea of something. I mean, I'm just curious. Like the idea of something being a form that's ritual, to me, feels like it might be done over and over, which would take the.
So it
power.
might be pro forma and it might
Yeah.
be forma,
Or it might be a touchstone.
or it might be a touchstone.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead, Asher Chaim, hit it.
Vehevi ha'ish et ishto el hakohen. The man shall bring his wife to the kohen. Vehevi et korbanah aleha, and shall bring her sacrifice on her. Asirit ha'efa qemach seorim, 1/10 of an ephah of barley flour. Lo yisok alav shemen, no oil shall he pour on it. V'lo yitain alav livona, nor any incense put on it. Ki minhat qinaot hu, because it is a grain offering of jealousy. Minhat zikaron maskeret avon. It is a minha of remembrance that reminds of wrongdoing.
Okay, let's stop there for a second. So it's a barley offering, and barley is like considered in the Torah a lower form of grain fed to animals. And there's no oil and there's no frankincense. Like there's nothing about this is a very plain offering. And we're told why. Because it's a offering of jealousy. And then it says it's a remembrance of sin. So who's sin?
Outrageous.
Outrageous.
Yeah. Does the same thing apply to a woman thinking about her husband gone astray?
No.
Does the priest do it? That's what I say.
It's
That's what I mean.
outrageous. I agree.
I've
No
known about
egalitarian.
this- I know I've known about this for several years, you know, and it always upset me.
It's very upsetting. It's very upsetting. But let me just say one thing here. It's very upsetting.
And you just heard it. I'm sorry.
No. Outbursts of upset. I love it. You could have Nikki. It could have been an out with Nikki, right? But let me say. So it's a maskarat avon, a remembrance which recalls wrongdoing. With all this talk of jealousy, it makes me wonder who's wrongdoing. Is it hers or maybe is it his? Is the jealousy itself possibly considered a sin by the Torah? Possibly. I know it's hard to read that in a patriarchal text, but we're going to get to a verse which may support that. So I just wanted to
It is one
open
of
up
the
that possibility.
7 deadly sins in Catholicism.
Buddhism, Catholicism, jealous rage, not good.
And she loses all her hair.
Okay, hold on. Wait, hold on. Hold on. Wait, this never happened to you, did it? Okay, go on, Asher Chaim.
Oh, so you don't want to go down the rabbit hole of Zikaron Mazkeret, because that's another 25 minutes we could waste.
I do want you to do one thing. I want you to pay attention to, not you, but everybody. The Hevi Ha'isha Isha. So the man is bringing in a wife, and then the wife, like there's no action by the woman herself. And in the next verse, the Kohen will bring her, will bring her close and stand her before God. Like she's clearly just an object. So do you want to say anything about Mazkeret? What'd you say about Mincha Zikara?
What's odd is Vehevi et Korbanah. As you point out, she is passive. He is bringing her offering.
Yes.
And so it's his remembrance and his evocation of, and again, she may be innocent.
Right.
And he knows she may be innocent because otherwise he could divorce her. But he's not divorcing her.
Correct.
So
some of them, go ahead.
This is an aberrational, no frills offering of animal feed that's bringing to mind Avon. I'm with you that this Avon is shared, his and hers.
I'm so glad you're saying that. Yeah, there was something else, but I don't remember. It'll come back to me. Okay. All right, go on.
Yeah.
Hold on 1 second,
It's just
Ben. Yeah.
small thing. I
Yeah.
just want to say that we were talking about who's, who the relationship is with.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's you were saying that it was the relationship with Adonai, but I think also it could be just like the state of marital affairs is itself godly. Like it's not about not about the man's ownership of the woman per se and her going astray and defiling herself, but it's the marital relationship is supposed to be godly and is at risk.
Yes.
And so here so I think that it could be read that way there too, and that's also potentially, well, whatever, you could relate that to the bitterness and the sweetness and so on, but I think that's where I would go with this.
Beautiful. And you just reminded me of what I was going to say and I didn't, which is related, which is many people read this as, since he can't sleep with her if she's impure, this restores the viability of the marriage. This ritual can restore the viability of the marriage. Can everyone mute if your hand isn't raised and I haven't called it? Thank you. Okay, go ahead, Ashokayim.
הקריב אותך הכהן והעמידך לפני אדוני. The Kohen shall offer her, bring her close, and stand her in the presence of Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh.
Right, so again, absolutely no agency in her part. She's brought close and she's stood there, so to speak, before God.
And paradoxically, the fact that she is suspect does not make her more distant from Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh, but the Kohen is bringing her closer to Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh. Just saying. ולקח הכהן מים קדושים בכלי חרס, ומן העפר אשר יהיה בקרקע המשכן, ייקח הכהן ונתן אל המים. The Kohen shall take water that is holy in an earthenware vessel, and some of the dust that will be on the floor or ground of the Mishkan, that the Kohen shall take and place into the water.
So, okay, get this. So, holy ground in the water. In the holy water, right? Mayim Toshim, holy earth in the holy water. Lots of holiness going around.
והעמיד הכהן את האישה לפני אדוני. The Kohen, again, shall stand the woman up in the presence of Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh. ופרע את ראש האישה, and disarrange the head of the woman.
I think he takes off her head covering, so her hair is, all wild.
Yeah, para.
That's how I read it because of the Talmud.
I'm sorry?
That's how I read it because what the Talmud does with it.
Yeah, Farah has the sense of making something wild and disorganized, like Aaron
Right,
at
so
the.
it's not that her hair is shaved. Her hair is uncovered. Unloosed.
Or unbraided or whatever. The word occurs in the golden calf incident that Aharon has created this,
nice.
This unruliness among the people.
Nice. And in a moment I think you might point out other parallels between this and the golden calf.
ונתן על כפיה את מנחת הזיכרון, מנחת קנאות היא, וביד הכהן יהיו מי המרים המערערים, and he shall place on her palms the offering of remembrance. It is a mincha of jealousy. I would just notice that here the word is pronounced he, whereas above the same mincha feminine was regarded as who when it was in his hands. Now it's in her hands, and it's her agency. Meanwhile, in the hand of the Kohen there shall be the bittering waters, which sounded formulaic.
Yes, there's the incantation, right? We're going to see more of this. Me hamarim hamerarim, right? And later, me hamarim hamerarim again. So wait, Elliot had a question?
Yeah, I'm curious about it's written twice. Okay, for there's a meal offering of jealousy, a meal offering of remembrance, which recalls wrongdoing, and then here again, it's the meal offering of remembrance, which is a meal offering of jealousy. I'm just wondering about the connection between remembrance and jealousy. I mean, the jealousy is the husband's, but whose remembrance is it?
So my association with remembrance, and maybe Ashokayim, you have a different understanding of this, is that there's no witness. This could be easily erased from the marital records. But no, there's remembrance here. Like there's an insistence that this go marked rather than unmarked.
I have a question.
Hold on one second. Ashokayim, do you want to say anything else about the remembrance?
Research of the past few decades have shown that sometimes memory is false or implanted memory. So memory is not like a witness.
Well, there's also never forgive, never forget.
But whose memory is it? So that's,
exactly.
Right. Whose memory is it? So that's why I see it as like divine remembrance and it's insisting that this is remembered as opposed to erased.
Isn't that?
Hold on,
unfairness?
hold on. Other people have their hands up. Hold on, hold on. Okay, so there are lots of hands and we didn't even get through the text, the amble. So I'm gonna ask people to be quick. Nikki,
Is this in front?
Jesse, Gloria. You already had said something, so I'm just gonna call on people who haven't said something.
Is
I
this?
have to-
Yes.
Okay,
And-
hold on, Gloria, hold on. Nikki, hold on, Nikki, Jesse, and then Gloria.
Is this a ceremony in front of the Kahal, in front of all of Israel, in front of who?
I don't think it says that unless I'm missing a detail. It says
Where
it
is
says
this taking
it says
place?
she should be stood up in front of the priests by the Mishkan, by the sanctuary. I don't think the Kahal is there unless I'm missing a detail. Ashakaim, am I missing a detail? No. Okay, good. Jesse.
Yeah, I'm really struck by something Asher Chaim said about how she's actually brought closer to God.
Yes.
I think that's very beautiful because it makes me think, and she's brought to God. You could say it instead of this judgment. You could say it in terms of support. So in 12 steps, right? If people say, you know, I'm a grateful alcoholic, I'm a grateful debtor, I'm a grateful whatever it is, because you wouldn't be coming to follow God, to develop your connection with your higher power if you didn't have that challenge, that particular challenge. It's sort of hard to understand until you're like on that path and you're like, wow, this is beautiful. So clearly she's unhappy, right? If she did this willingly.
If she did it.
But if she did it willingly, she's unhappy. And so that unhappiness, that's why we're all here anyway. Nobody would be looking for God if they were just, I always say this, a separate wife, you know, everything's just fine, right? You come to God because of your challenges
Beautiful.
and the path, you know, to be on that path.
So Jesse's making the bitter scroll sweet.
Exactly.
That's the first touch of sweetness I've heard. Okay, beautiful, thank you. Gloria.
I want to agree with the woman who said it's outrageous.
What does she want to do?
Let's agree with you.
She disagree or
Well-
agree?
Agree with you.
Agree with you. Okay, you're in the club of outrageous women, or women outraged. Women outraged.
Well, the thing is that in that period, men were even encouraged to have other women like Hagar
Correct.
to produce children. Well,
Absolutely.
really.
It's outrageous. It's outrageous. I am not contesting that. It is outrageous. Anyone who's
Okay.
outraged,
Men agree.
please stand up.
Okay.
You're not outraged.
No.
Rachel's outraged.
Good time. I'm outraged because what if the man does it? Is he called before the
Yes,
police?
if he sleeps with a woman who's married, he is put to death.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Wait, shh.
He also simply cannot get pregnant.
He
And-
can't.
And you want to know where your, I do believe this, you want to know, I'm thinking another time, maybe things are different now. We all want to know where our children come from. Whether it's fair or not is a different question, but from a practical point.
You're
of
saying
view-
there's another question underlying this.
Right. But on this issue of other women, I have this theory that, thinking about how many women used to die in childbirth and how many women in another time would have 18, 20 children. On some level, it might be better to have other women in there because you might have a longer life.
Sure.
You wouldn't have so many children. Giving birth is a difficult thing.
Yeah, you want to
So
take
there's this
turns, for
practical
sure.
side, and I'm
For sure.
wondering, why do we think it's such a good thing to have 10 to 20 children?
Yes, for
You know?
sure. Right.
Anyways, complicated.
I also want to recall that Ben was also making things sweet when saying it's like it's restoring the integrity of the marriage or marital relationship.
I think there's this practical-
Wait, hold on. Was someone waiting here? You want to say something? No. Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to say what happens to the man when he's jealous. I mean, what's?
Let's see.
Oh, you getting there?
Batya, you want to say something
Yeah.
quick?
On the other hand, it shows that there was a great fear about women. In other words, you had to
You are
punish
scary, you know.
a woman first, because you were afraid of her. And it's who is, that had no idea of what a woman is except for reproduction of, for having children. and so
Yeah,
on
the
and
women
so
have
forth.
great,
But there
had and have great power.
could have
in
been a
that.
great fear about women to begin with in order to give
Guilty as
her
charged.
such a horrible ordeal and not to the husband. There was no idea of what is equal,
Gotcha.
no equality.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, Ben.
Well, just very briefly, I would frame it slightly differently in terms of potency. Women are very potent, and to what you're saying, there's a real value in terms of the community's future, in terms of women's ability to have children. Like there is no equivalent to that, right? That is the community's future. That's where they get, the ability to grow more food and, fight in battles and so on. Like this is really like the most valuable thing in the community is its women.
It's also the promise.
That's right.
Right.
And so I think the idea that you need to have a place to put that value, right? And there's different ways to organize that. But this community is organizing it in terms of it being possible to put that value primarily under the control of the husband. That is the legal organization that they have chosen for it. However, what this is talking about is I think it's affecting the husband negatively to say publicly, hey, I think somebody may have, defiled like this part of our, our value, our potency, right? Which happens to be my wife, right? Like that my wife is potentially like that she may be pregnant or whatever, she may be having offspring in a way that was not sanctioned. And so that is, that's a threat to the community, as you're saying, but also that's a threat to, that doesn't look like the fact that he's publicly accusing her and is jealous, like that's also not a good look for him or for the marriage.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that the point is that this is not, even though this is, all this ritual, I think, is speaking to the the fear and potency and significance of this threat. But at the same time, I think it's not reflecting well on the husband either.
And it cannot be resolved
by intention.
It can't be resolved legally by normal legal means because
Right.
there's no witness. So it's these extraordinary means that need to sort of resolve, I guess, the status quo.
Or not. I mean, what
Or
I'm
not.
saying is like,
Or not.
the really interesting thing to me is that it actually might not do anything except publicly acknowledge that there's a problem in this marriage. Because like, if you think about it, the status quo may stay exactly the same, except that everybody now knows that this is what's going on in this marriage. They have publicly said this. And I think that is the main thing that happened. Like they've gone in front of the Kohen, the woman has gotten closer to this situation. They have like laid this bare and said like, we're having a problem.
But is the Cohen like a marital therapist? Is this really public? I'm not totally sure.
I guess it might not be. It might be a private thing, but like you're telling me that nobody knows that they went to the Mishkan?
I don't know.
I feel like that's not possible. I feel like in a community like this, like you can't go to
We're-
the Mishkan
we're-
secretly.
Okay. All right. I'm going to go on. Jay and then Alex and then back to back to the text. Back to the text. Okay.
I'm afraid I'm gonna go. I'm afraid I'm gonna go dark with my outrage. I agree with Ben up to a point, which is I think this is all about how you organize an economy of transactions. And the man and the husband and the man is clearly the one in charge, and the woman is property. That's what we have. So when a married when a man has relationships with a married woman, it's not the married woman who hauls him into court. It's the husband who's been wronged. And my sense, sorry, Jesse, but my sense of what's going on here is much more like, the woman's hair is undone. That's probably a shaming act. And she's hauled in front of the judge by the bailiff, by the scruff of her neck, to be in front of that judge who's sitting on a high court to kind of judge her. So I don't see much sweetness in this at all. And I really think this is more or less about, the patriarchy and protecting that system.
Yeah, Jay,
how we
I don't
organize,
Neither do I.
Hold on, I don't disagree with
Ben
that.
and I disagree. Yeah.
I want to go through the whole text before we come to sort of like meta conclusions.
Okay, sorry.
But first,
Yeah.
definitely stand. And I'll just also say, I don't think one thing is going on here. So what you said doesn't necessarily refute what Jesse said. Okay, Alex, and then back to the text.
Just quickly, I just think if Hashem put this in place,
Yeah.
then he must think that the covenant relational marriage is quite key, quite important to him.
Yes.
So despite the man's inappropriate behavior or the treatment of the woman, I think it speaks to just the covenant sacredness.
Yeah, beautiful, Alex. And we'll see the crime is not only against the man, but also against God, God's son. We'll see that in the text. There's one more thing I want to say about that. Okay, we're going to go on. What were we up to? 19? Is that correct, Pastor Chaim? So it's definitely for Ra, it's Rosh Hayisha, like her head's gone, her hair's gone wild and she's brought up there and there's this sort of like substandard like offering. This is an act of humiliation. There's no doubt about it. No doubt. Right? We can point in a million directions at why this is an act of humiliating this woman who may or may not be guilty. Okay. Asher Chaim, we cannot hear you.
If I may?
Yes, you may.
I believe Einstein's quote, "If we see farther, it is because we stand on the shoulders of giants." If we take the tradition as a humanly infused tradition, we can stand on its shoulders and see farther. So, as opposed to this is the immutable word of a God, I cannot accept this word, therefore I cannot accept this God. Just saying.
For sure. And to add to that, as I always say, the Torah is the beginning of the conversation. It's actually not the last word. And that's why there are rabbinic texts on the page that we may or may not get to.
And dare I say the Leitvort of Farah, it is the Kohen who is making her wild and unkempt.
Yes.
It's not her action that made her so, but rather the Kohen is somatizing, if you will, the craziness that has happened because of his jealousy.
Interesting. Okay, let's go on. Let's get to the, let's get to the end of this text, okay?
Kohen, the Kohen shall put her under oath. Ve'amar el ha'isha, and he shall say to the woman, Imlo shachav ish otach, ve'imlo satit, tum'ah tachat ishech. If another man has not slept with you, and if you have not strayed impurity in the presence of your husband, hinnaqi, be vindicated, mimmei hamarim ha'ararim ha'ella, from the bitter cursing waters. Ve'at, first presumption of innocence. Ve'at kisatit tahat ishech. But you, if you have strayed from the presence of your husband, v'chinit mate, and if you have become impure, v'yitein ishbach et shchavto, and another man has placed in you his shchav, his semen, mibil adei ishech, other than your husband. Hishbiah hakohen et ha'isha b'shvu'at ha'ala, the Kohen shall bring unto oath the woman in the oath of the curse, that was formulaic. Ve'amar hakohen la'isha, and the Kohen shall say to the woman, Yitain Adonai otach le'ala ve'lishvu'a betoch amech beteit Adonai et yerechech nofelet vet bitnech sava. The Kohen shall say to the woman, in that case, may Yud-Heh Vav-Heh make you a curse and an oath in the presence of your nation when Yud-Heh Vav-Heh causes your thigh to fall and your belly to swell. Uva'u hamayim hama'arim ha'ele b'me'ayich litzbo' beten v'lan pel yarech. These waters of embitterment shall come into your gut to cause your belly to swell and cause your thigh to fall off. Ve'amra ha'isha amen, amen.
So that's
And
the only thing the woman does is say amen, amen. That's the only one of her,
pause,
the only
amen.
thing she does. What?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Slightly reminiscent of the blessings and curses that we read just a couple of weeks ago in the Chukotai, where blessings can be expressed in a few words and curses take dozens of words. Just saying. V'chatav et ha'alot ha'el ha'kohen bas-sefer, and the Kohen shall write these words of curse in a scroll. Umaha et me hamarim, and blot out the waters of embittering.
Wait a second. Wait a second. No. It's not that.
Umaha el me hamarim, I'm sorry, and blot them out into the bitter
in other words,
waters.
they dissolve. So these cursing words are dissolved into the bitter waters. All right, talk about strange incantations. Back to what you were asking about before. Okay, go on.
Sounds like witchcraft.
It does,
Sure
doesn't
does.
it? Okay, go on.
Yeah, and just a side note that among the letters being erased into the waters, that includes the name of God spelled out.
Exactly, that's going to be crucial in a moment. So the name of God, right? Yud-Heh Vav-Heh, it dissolved into this water that she's about to be made to drink. And again, she's not the agent of her own actions. Right? She's sort of fed this drink.
Yeah, and again, she's being brought closer to the name as she was brought closer to Yud-Heh Vav-Heh.
Yes.
And that
So
proximity,
she drinks it, she imbibes it.
that proximity will be either a blessing or a curse. And nobody knows what happened except God and the woman.
Yes. And the man.
If there was guilt, then there's a poipatrata.
Okay, go on.
והשקה את האישה את מי המרים המאררים ובאו בח המים המאררים למרים.
Okay, everyone's listening to the alliteration, yes? Okay, oh yeah.
He shall cause the woman to drink the waters, the bitter, the cursing, and the waters, the bitter, the cursing shall come inside of her. ולקח הכהן מיד האישה את מנחת הנאות, והניף את המנחה לפני אדוני, והקריב אותה אל המזבח. The Kohen shall take from the hand of the woman the grain offering of jealousy and uplift the grain offering before Yud-Heh Vav-Heh and present it to the altar.
Okay, good. Okay, so here's the law of Hammurabi. So if a man's wife should have a finger pointed at her in accusation involving another male, although she has not been seized lying with another male, in other words, there's no witness, she shall submit to the divine river ordeal for her husband. So this is another Near Eastern code. It's much less this ritual is much less involved. Basically, this woman is thrown into the river. If she drowns, she's guilty. If she doesn't, she's innocent. What? So maybe I don't know if they asked about like whether she could swim or not.
Isha and Israel.
The medieval treatment of women who
Yes.
used to be witches or.
Yeah.
It's a witch trial, yeah.
Which is
Tied to the chair.
Yeah.
Is that a witch?
Right, exactly. Okay, all right. Now, as Alex was saying before, this is also a sin against the covenant. And in fact, we have that language in, from now on, I'm only going to take comments from people who have not spoken. I'm just letting people know, okay? Invite you to speak if you haven't spoken, except for Asher Chaim, who's reading along and commenting along with me. So this is a sin not only against the husband, but against God, and is often used as a way to discuss idolatry in the prophets. So it says here, in terms of Yosef, who's Potiphar's wife is trying to seduce him. He says, "Einenu gadol b'bayit hazeh mimeni, v'lo chasach mimeni me'uma ki im otach asher at ishto." So Joseph said, he wields no more authority in this house than I, and he has withheld nothing from me except yourself, since you are his wife. How then could I do this most wicked thing and sin before God? And Rashi also echoes this idea when it says, minchat kinot, knaot, me'oreret aleha shtei knaot. The plural knaot is used because it arouses against her two outbreaks of jealousy: the jealousy of the omnipresent and the jealousy of her husband. And remember that when a woman gets married now under the chuppah, right, the language of kinyan, acquisition, is used in a sacred context called kiddushin. Right, so it's sacred, but there's still this language of acquisition that's used in sort of traditional weddings. I know many people, including myself, that did not use this language in one way direction, but a man acquires a woman, right, in the language of, again, Kenya. Okay, so hold on. We're just going to read this passage, and then I'll take people who have not spoken yet. Asher Chaim, do you want me to read, or do you still have energy? Can't hear you.
I'm an old Torah reader. I love this stuff.
Okay, great.
And at least it's not the whole Torah portion, which goes on forever. V'qamas hakohen min hamincha et azkaratah v'yaqtir hamizbeha v'yahar yashke et ha'isha et hamayim. The Kohen shall scoop out from the meal offering its azkara. That's a technical term for the portion that's burned on the altar, and he shall offer it on the altar, towards the altar. V'yahar, and afterwards he shall cause the woman to drink the water. At this point, the water does not have any adjectives or descriptives. It's interesting. It's like before and after presenting the azkara. V'hishqa et hamayim v'haita im nitma'a v'tim'ol ma'al be'isha. He shall cause her to drink the water, and it shall come to pass, if she was defiled, and she did ma'al, encroachment, misappropriation, whatever, against her husband, uva hamayim hama'ararim lemarim v'savata b'kna v'nafla yerechah v'haita ha'isha le'ala b'kerev ammah. Wowza. The waters, the bitter waters that curse shall come into her, her belly shall swell, her thigh shall fall, and the woman shall be a curse in the midst of her nation.
Which underlines Ben's point before that it becomes a very public thing.
V'im lo mitma'a haisha utehorahi v'nikta v'nizra'a zara. But if the woman was not defiled, and she is ritually pure, she shall be acquitted and v'nizra'a zara, procreative seed shall be sown. It's like a light vort. Zot Torat HaKenaot asher tiste isha tachat ishah v'nitme'ah. This is the Torah of jealousy. If a woman strays from under her husband and is defiled, O ish.
Sorry, just note that this is an instruction of jealousy, right? The key phenomenon here is jealousy, not her going astray.
O isha asher ta'avor alav ruach qin'ah v'qinei et ishto v'ha'amid ha'isha lifnei Adonai v'asa lah ha'kohen et kol ha'torah hazot. Or a man over whom passes a spirit of jealousy, and he is jealous of his wife and stands her up in the presence of Yud-Heh Vav-Heh, and the Kohen shall do all of this or perform all of this Torah. Now the controversial words that lend themselves to so much interpretation. V'niqah ha'ish me'avon v'ha'isha ha'i tissa et avonah.
That is plain wrong.
The husband being cleansed of wrongdoing, and that woman shall bear her sin.
Okay, so what in the world does this mean? So according to the JPS series, he's cleansed of his iniquity, which was his jealousy. If she was actually guilty, right?
Right.
And she will bear her iniquity if she was guilty, but God is the only one who will sort of address that iniquity. I still don't, not sure it makes sense. Hashem, you want to add? There's a lot of hands up, so hold on 1 second.
What the rabbis do with the man being innocent, they say that it only works if the man himself is innocent.
Yes, that's right. That's right. That if he himself has not committed adultery with another woman.
And or if he is bringing this out of sincere torment, he wants to stay married or he would have divorced her. And like Othello and Desdemona, he can't get over this jealousy thing. In that case, he may be innocent. If he's trying to use this as a weapon to demean her or whatever, then he ain't innocent. And this whole ritual ain't going to work, and she's going to be cleared.
Yeah. Okay, so now we have a huge problem, which there are a million hands up. So, and we have 5 minutes. So I'm going to call on David Kurtz, who's been waiting. And I'm going to invite other people to put their comments in the chat. I don't know if we have time for anyone else. I'm so sorry. But David Kurtz, because I also want to do one more text as a wrap and not leave you with all this sort of, it's always going to be unresolved. But I want to at least add one possible note of sweetness.
Turns out my inner atheist.
Okay, David Kurtz.
Thank you. I just quickly want to say that this is a reminder that which I think is very important to God, that God is omnipresent, and even though there aren't witnesses, and the most important thing to me is that kind of is over all the comments, and lest we take this so seriously. Someone wrote in the text, is this myth or what? And the point is that at the beginning of this whole thing, the Lord spoke to Moses saying, "Speak to the Israelite people and say to them." We don't know if any of this happened. It's a warning. It's a warning, and it's a pretty stiff warning. So, I think that's before we all get engaged in, oh my God, this is so awful and everything else. I think it's a way of and Moses goes down this route. He ends the whole Deuteronomy with, you people better, So it's another one of the warnings and a reminder that God is omnipresent.
Yeah, so we don't know if it's ever happened, and in all of rabbinic literature, I think it's discussed as occurring once. So, and the Mishnah abrogates it. So like this, we can't institute this.
Abrogates.
Abrogate means they undo it. They undo the law. It's no longer applicable because there's so much adultery we can't possibly. That's what they say. We can't possibly institute. It's on your page. Okay, I am so sorry. I can't call on every. I'd love to continue having this conversation. So I'm going to do one more text with you all, and here we go. And I'm going to leave it to you to decide, is there any sweetness in all this violence and shame? I don't know. I'm sort of left, at least for today, I'm left more with the cruelty of the thing than the redemption of the thing. And yeah, I see a lot of people nodding their heads. But maybe little bits of light that little bits of sweetness maybe amidst it. So here's something to think about, which I really, really love. So this is from Rabbi Nachman. It says, in the case of the this is number 16, it says 4, but ignore that. In the case of the holy name, inscribed in sanctity, Scripture orders that it be blotted out in water to bring about peace between a man and his wife. Or I would say a husband and a wife. In the course of the Sotah ceremony, which determines whether a woman was unfaithful to her husband, God's name is written on a shard of clay that is then dipped in water, causing the name to be erased, as if God is saying, my name, which was written in holiness, may be erased in order to bring out peace between the husband.
Sweet.
How sweet it is. So that is sweet. It also makes me, wonder, like, what would one be willing to give up for the sake of peace? Either in a personal conflict, right? Marital conflict, intimate conflicts, national conflicts. What part of our identity, what part of our name would we be willing to have? And what not?
Amen.
And what not?
That's deep.
That's deep. That's the biggest compliment I've gotten. All right. With that, I'm going to offer everybody a Shabbat Shalom, a Shabbat of fullness. I'd love to hear what everyone else wants to say. So please email me if I know people really were burning to say things, and I hate not knowing. So I'm going to read some of the chat right now, not out loud, but as people sort of enter into the after party.
Let's get to the
Yeah, we don't know anything. Just to respond briefly to Leslie, we don't know that this was ever happened and how it unfolded. And some people think it's sort of a threatened miscarriage.
Can't be any worse than marriage counseling.
Okay, everybody, wishing you a Shabbat Shalom.